Okay. All right. Listen, I want us to get started on this conversation about what happened in Obuasi, right? And to help us understand, at least from the security angle, we are joined by Professor Kwesi Aning, who, of course, is a security expert. Prof, good morning to you. Thank you for your time.
Well, good morning.
All right. Now, just before we get into it, let's hear this very short report that was put together by our colleague Emmanuel Bright Kweku.
In the early hours of Sunday, some illegal miners in Obuasi went on rampage following the killing of their colleagues in a clash with the military. The illegal miners had besieged one of the abandoned concessions of AngloGold Ashanti when they were confronted by military personnel on guard.
Almost 30 minutes in the meanwhile, soldier, Obijania, see and shooting a cheek. I'm not Virginia in Yego at the Bonabene de AG. Yeti Kurum, Yeti Kurum. Namabati company, Namusasu, my commodity, after the Musasu Kumuye.
What wrong have you done, AGA? We are living in our own town, but you are denying us food, and now you are killing us. The Ghana Armed Forces, in a statement, indicated they returned fire in self-defense when the illegal miners fired at their troops on duty. The irate miners, in retaliation, hit the principal streets of the town and set ablaze 4 vehicles of subcontractors of the mine, of which one crashed into a nearby shop and torched properties. We do not know what has happened in Tutuka. A little movement in town, then everyone begins to run away. Hear the siren wailing. It's scary living here now. Both private and public schools in Obuasi East and Obuasi municipalities have been temporarily closed down amidst the escalations. George Kumson is Director of Education at Obuasi municipality.
We cannot guarantee the safety of both learners and teachers. So we discussed with the Regional Director of Education, and we have agreed that for tomorrow and possibly Tuesday, let's look at the situation. If it's calm, then we go back to school.
How will this impact education in Obuasi?
The contract hours for tomorrow will be made, and if it is made, I mean, as you are aware, it means that getting back the hours to recoup whatever should have been lent will be gone.
For Joy News, my name is Emmanuel Bright Kweku.
So that's what we know. Prof. Kwesi Aning joins us now. Prof, we are told that these were soldiers who were deployed to protect AngloGold Ashanti concessions as part of Operation Halt 2. Now, from your own sources, what are you picking up? Is this a one-off flash event, or is this a culmination of ongoing trouble between illegal miners and soldiers at this location?
Well, I think what we need to get to grips with relates to the tipping point. I mean, these tensions have been brewing on and off, but what is it that really tipped the balance yesterday or 2 days ago? That's my first point. The second point I want to make is that, dependent on how this is handled, this may spread elsewhere. Because we are looking at least at 1 million Ghanaians who are directly involved in Galamsey, and about another 3 to 4 million dependent on Galamseyers by providing other types of support infrastructure. So the way we handle this Ashanti Goldfields crisis is very key. Right now, I mean, I think the military has issued a statement. The miners are talking. But I like the decisiveness with which the president has acted, seeking to get to the bottom of this as quickly as possible and to punish those found culpable so that it serves as a deterrent. I think this is a dramatic escalation that needs to be understood and hopefully nipped in the bud. We know why things happen, or we can expect things to happen. but we are almost always never sure what the tipping event is. So what was that time back that led these 60 or so people to arm themselves, seeking to enter a particular Greek pit, and then the confrontation leading to this dramatic escalation? It's damaged our reputation internationally. Quite a number of foreign news reports have been made about this particular event. So, but from where I sit, it hasn't come as a surprise, and I will not be surprised if more of them happen in other parts of the country.
Now, Prof, the illegal miners who survived this attack are putting out a different story. They claim that they were actually on their knees with their hands up, unarmed, carrying nothing but chisels and hammers when the military fired upon them. The military, in their statement, are emphatic that they actually returned fire in self-defense, and that one of their men even got injured by pellets from a pump-action shotgun. Can you walk us through what would be typical rules of engagement in such a situation? Military men protecting a private facility, and then there is an encroachment by 60 odd people. What would happen typically?
Well, first and foremost is the nature of the engagement between a private company and statutory security forces. You see, it does happen, but in the situation that Ghana finds itself, it's rather unusual for us to divert scarce resources to protect a private entity. That's number one. Number two, the basic training and rules of engagement, even in war, is that when the person is lying down, has given up the weapon, has turned his or her back and is running away, you don't shoot at them. The third point is that when armed statutory security forces on legitimate duty feel threatened enough or that their lives are at risk, they are enjoined by the rules of engagement to respond with appropriate force. You cannot use inordinate, disproportionate force. And that is what this committee must attempt to disentangle. Who did what at what time, and what were the opposing forces holding, and was the force used appropriate or excessive? I think the Ghana Armed Forces statement uses the word lethal force. And I think the meaning there is that if you come holding a pump action gun or a cutlass, but your behavior is threatening enough, of course they will use their AKs to respond to you. But in all circumstances, the training is such that in these confrontations, minimal lives must be lost. So we need to get to the bottom as to how 7 precious lives have been lost.
Okay. Now, Prof, briefly, since you talk about the fact that, there's a need for investigations, now that we have the military, the Ghana Armed Forces saying one thing, you have the illegal miners saying one thing, what can you infer? What do you think really happened?
I don't know. But if you cast your mind back in the last 24 months, we've had increasing clashes between communities and uniformed statutory security forces. What actually might have happened, and this is pure speculation based on some of the great work that Erastus Aridonko has done and as a journalist. I think for the miners, it may have been business as usual. So why are you restraining us from getting into the mine? And therein lies the need for whoever is leading this investigation to ask some very hard questions. Because we know from the videos we've seen from elsewhere that other statutory or uniformed officials have sometimes in the performance of their professional duty colluded with and partnered with some miners or acted on behalf of some mining companies. So my reading of the situation from where I sit is that there was a misunderstanding as to what ought to have been business as usual, not being so. And in the confusion, tempest rose and things got out of hand. But let's wait for whoever will lead this investigation to come with the report. But it is not acceptable under any circumstances.
Now, talking about business as usual, I'm just curious, what would convince these miners to actually go to the concession of a mining company to demand that they mine? What is it that we have not done over the period that convinces them that it is business as usual?
So 2 points there. One is that, quite a number of mining companies have social corporate responsibility in terms of the environment, employing a certain percentage of local people, and trying as much as possible to build good relationships. That, in most circumstances, does not take place, leading to invasion of legitimate concessions by local people. But we also know, secondly, from the video footage and the audios that your own station has done over time, that, there is a taxation system in place where people who are supposed to guard these mines raid the mines to prevent, illegal artisanal miners from going to these mines, collect taxes. So prior to an Operation Halt, group getting to X mine, the people would already have moved because there's been leakage of intelligence. So over time, over the last 8, 9, 10 years, it's business as usual, that you come, you collect your taxes, and off you go. So were there to be new people who have decided it is not business as usual, okay, we will not take any money from you, we will prevent you from entering the mine, then, of course, there will be misunderstanding, tempest will flare, this is our livelihood, and from what one of the miners was saying, this is our land, you've come here, you've taken, the land, and we are not getting access. But Ashanti Goldfields has been in Obuasi probably close to 100 years or so. So the narrative of local people feeling dispossessed, feeling that they are victims, feeling that they are excluded from getting access to what ought to be legitimately theirs, is what is fueling this anger. But also that artisanal gold mining is beginning to pose an existential threat to all of us. And I think prior to the election, we all heard and said a lot. Since 8th of December, probably this is the first time that, artisanal gold mining has come into the news, but in an unfortunate manner. So the way that this is handled, this particular crisis epitomizes what is found in hundreds of other places in Ghana. So the way this is handled and the speed with which it is handled to get to the bottom of it becomes very key. because it can prevent other similar cases from happening.
And Prof, what do you make of the government statements asking for investigations, but also in that same statement gives responsibility to the company whose operational area was encroached to be responsible for the medical expenses of the injured and also the illegal miners who were killed?
Well, I think in terms of paying the medical bills, my assessment is that, look, the company must begin. No, this is not about the pure legality. Lives have been lost, people have been hurt. The company will have to continue to do business in the town. So my assessment is that this is to begin to reduce the tensions and to assuage the hurt. I'm sure off record some payment might be made. The first point you made about government's decision to establish or get to the bottom of it, I think is very important. And the speed with which that decision has been made to at least to get us to understand what took place and also to punish. The punishment bit for me is very important so that it deters others from taking the law into their own hands. We have had too many instances where people with godfathers, godmothers misbehave and flout the rules of this country, knowing they can go scot-free. The government has set itself a very high target. If we find out through the investigations that anyone has flouted the rules, you will be punished. And I think sending that signal is very key. So I wait with bated breath to read what comes out, but more importantly also, the punishments that will be meted out to those who deserve to be punished.
And Prof,
we're talking to Professor Kwesi Aning. We're getting to grips with what happened in Obuasi, going through the situation from the security side of things. If you just joined us, we must apologize. We will bring you the BBC News tomorrow, but we're staying with this conversation for now. It is our main issue.
Yeah, just Prof, one last one from me. There are many other companies, mining companies. What would be your advice? What sort of cue should they take from this? What sort of protection should they be providing for themselves?
Well, it's not just about the protection that they should be providing for themselves. It's also the nature of their relationships to the communities in which they are located. You see, as for the security bit, that is a technical, professional piece of work that can be done fairly easily. The real crux of the matter is that, look, mining companies will need to engage the communities much better, not only with the chief, but women's groups, youth groups, religious groups, sending a clear signal that irrespective of the unintended impacts of our activities, we are in this together. So the provision of schools, social amenities, health facilities, signaling that it is not purely an economic relationship, but it's also a social and a personal one. So most mine guards are either retired people, fairly experienced, but it's how they manage that, the communication, the public engagement with the communities in which they are located. I mean, most companies operate quietly, and we never hear about tensions and problems. So amongst the mining companies themselves, they have this network, several meetings that allows them to share their experience experiences. But what is happening and the tensions between communities and mining companies is a West Africa wide problem. So let's learn from the lessons of previous successful engagements, and then from the lessons and the results of this investigation, and then hopefully we can nip this in the bud. But it's going to.
Prof, except that in the last 6 years, the group, the association, had called on the state to help them because they are being invaded daily by illegal miners. Indeed, in 2022, that security officer stationed at night at Adamus mine was shot in the head. Now, in the year 2023, 3 different incidents of attack on even military people happened at the same Obuasi place. All of these were reported. The only in this year is difference here is that it appears a large number of illegal miners died this time round. Is this investigation, isolating the singular incident here, going to be the panacea to the problem?
No, far from it. And that is why the remit given to this investigation team must be much wider. Because invasion of mines, availability of small arms, we don't have an idea of how many small arms are in circulation for the past 12 years. No baseline survey has been done from the one that was done around 2013, 2014. So when you cite these examples, it only shows an escalation. But not just an escalation and people's access to lethal weapons, but also their willingness to use them and to challenge legitimate authority that if we don't get our way, we are going to deal with you. Now, if we go back a little, and I like the way you went back to 2022 thereabouts, and we see the number of licenses issued, the invasion of lands, forest reserves, that lack of ability to issue those licenses in conformity with the laws of this country has created this sense that, well, but if people can mine along water bodies and in forest reserves, which is against the laws of the country, then why can't I also go and do similar illegalities? So the state of Ghana has the responsibility to ensure that its own rules and regulations are applied dispassionately and enforced with the robustness that is necessary. Because when you have 1 million people who are in the illegal side of artisanal small-scale mining, who have colluded with important people over time and gotten away, there is the conviction that they can strike a blow against the state and its agent, and that it must and should by necessity continue to be business as usual. So the points you've raised are key. We can't continue to lose lives either by people who are legitimately doing their work and performing their functions, or even those who seek to challenge these people. And I think what has happened the last day or two just tells us that we need, this is just the tip of the iceberg. And I'll repeat this. Based on how we resolve this crisis, by understanding the tipping points, the anger in communities, and isolating and punishing those whose behavior flouts the law. And this is not just about the statutory security force. also from the illegal miners side. Those who have misbehaved against the law must be identified and punished. If we don't do that, then we will see an escalation and an increasing frequency of these confrontations.
Right, Prof. I just want to read something from the AngloGold Ashanti statement. It says, a large group of armed illegal miners attempted to forcibly gain unauthorized access to mine infrastructure. Authorities mobilized to defend against this attack and to ensure the safety of the security of employees and so forth. The authorities have confirmed that 7 illegal miners tragically lost their lives in this incident, and that a number of the illegal miners and a member of the public security forces were injured. Basically, at no point does AngloGold Ashanti state categorically that it was the military that were providing this protection service to them. Why do you think that is?
Well, I started earlier on by raising concerns about what the nature of the agreement between AngloGold and probably the military is. Is this one small business as usual that statutory security forces protect private businesses? Is it an income generating agreement? So the remit, and therein lies why this committee is very important. Because AngloGold is saying one thing, the miners are saying another thing. We have an official statement from the Ghana Armed Forces. So we need to get to the bottom of this. Were the army there formally? What was the nature of the agreement? Is this some service that they provide elsewhere? So I don't know the members of this committee, but I am hoping they will get to work and get to work very quickly, because the more people issue statements and the more officials talk, the murkier the situation becomes.
Right.
And I think that murkiness then creates opportunities for others to misbehave. Yeah. So we will wait for the panel or the committee to come with its results, but also ensure that its recommendations are implemented, because more often than not, in 9 out of 10, these committees are established, they sit, the report is written, recommendations made, and hardly anything comes out of it.
Prof, we thank you very much for your time this morning.